Add to your enjoyment of the movies, we offer cold, refreshing, full-flavored drinks, choice popcorn, freshly popped, crisp and tasty, and richly coated, taste-filled candy bars that are sure to please you. Yes, there are many good things here for your pleasure. Enjoy them.
The moment our fellow geeks, dweebs, nerds, and other unfortunates have been fervently waiting for has finally arrived. It's time for TMI, Confessionals of the Nerd Kind. And now, your hosts, Jeff Nerf Herder Chandler, Jim Kaiju Baker, and Christina Yojimbo Henry. You can continue. And now, let's get on with the show. Here is TMI.
All the juicy stuff happens before you hit record. Oh, sorry, no one got to hear it.
No one got to hear it. Sorry.
Oh, well, yeah.
Maybe next time I'll remember to hit it earlier. Sorry, everybody.
Welcome. This is our second episode in 2024.
It is, yes.
Wow. Just flying by.
Yeah, and we had such a fantastic start with Zack Snyder and Rebel Moon.
Speaking of which, did you see that Netflix now allows you to like put Zack Snyder on like your home screen or something, or use him as your avatar?
What, him? Zack
like his
himself?
picture. Yeah. Like, what is going on? What does he have over this company? So bizarre. So what are we talking about this week? This is you mentioned that this is going to be very controversial. It's a controversial movie.
It is.
Controversial.
I'm not sure if our discussion is going to be controversial.
Well, I guess the subject, I really didn't know what I was getting in for when I sat down to watch this movie, other than that you told me that you would never look at Emma Stone the same way again. And when that scene happened, I said, okay, now I see what he's talking about.
That scene?
Plural. All right, yes. This is like an art house Lady Chatterley's Lover. This is unlike anything I have ever seen in my life.
I think the story holds up on its own.
Right,
we can discuss whether or not.
Yes, correct. That was even necessary.
We needed all those extraneous scenes. I can see why the justification. I don't think any of them are tittillating in the least.
No, and I don't think they're meant to be.
No.
We'll get into it because this discussion is going to, but it wasn't even playing at my Regal. So I have to think that was a conscious decision on somebody's end to say, we're not showing this.
Unless it just is not opening wide, because it was showing at my Regal. So it's not like it's a Regal wide decision not to show it. No.
And I had to go to AMC, and it was under a special AMC banner that they were showcasing it as. I don't know.
Oscar buzz, because this is definitely an Oscar bait movie.
There's a lot of I have a lot of buzz to say about this movie. So but we are pairing this up with one of your favorite movies.
Yes.
Which is The Bride.
The Bride.
Now, if you go on Amazon Prime, there are quite a few movies called The Bride, so make sure you get the one.
There are, yes. It took me to research this. I had to dig for it on Google just to find the info on it.
Yeah, this one was, I thought when we looked it up that it was like on Tubi or Freebie or one of those. And no, I paid my $3.99 or whatever it was happily.
Right.
It was not money wasted.
I like to go into new movies with the bare minimum of knowledge, but I had seen some online articles headline comparing Poor Things to The Bride of Frankenstein. It's really? Very apt, comparison.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
So as soon as I saw that, without digging further into what Poor Things was about, I'm like, well, then this is perfect. Right. We've never done The Bride before. So
there you go. Yeah. So we're going to talk that on the back end. Mm-hmm. We'll do a little news and then we'll get into it.
Okay.
I really hate starting out our news items with downers, but we did lose David Soul this week, age 80. I bring him up because he's also stars not only in Starsky and Hutch, which dates us, but Salem's Lot, which is a movie you reference a lot.
Yes, and we've not covered that yet.
No, we have not. So maybe we don't give up on us. We might cover it eventually. I do have one big question. Was he Starsky or was he Hutch?
I don't know.
Oh,
I didn't watch the show.
Neither did I. I knew of it. I mean, I knew the car and that they were like street level police officers and Huggy Bear. But yeah, I think
it was one of those shows that was on at 9 or 10 o'clock on a weekday. And that just, I was past my bedtime. I couldn't watch it.
You're dealing with prostitutes and street crimes and stuff like that. As a kid, it never appealed to me in any way, shape, or form. Yeah. So I also want to bring up the fact that Cindy Morgan of Tron and Caddyshack fame has passed away as well.
Oh yeah, I did see that too.
Yeah, this every week this can just be in memoriam. This one's heartbreaking. Christian Oliver, who's not really a well-known name, but he was in my favorite movie, Speed Racer. He was the snake oil driver. One of the bad guys. Okay. Him and his two daughters were coming back from holiday in the Caribbean, and their single engine plane crashed. All three of them, plus the pilot, died. And his daughters were 10 and 12.
It's terrible.
That just happened like the 4th, January 4th. So coming back from holiday, why the wife wasn't with him, I don't know. But she did survive, but she was not on the plane.
Yeah.
So that's a brutal way to go right there. All right, we'll end on a upbeat. It's award season. We're in 2024, Golden Globes. We got 2 new categories this year. Any interest?
There's one that's like box office based, right? Or popularity based.
Cinematic and box office achievement in motion pictures for theatrical projects that gross at least 150 million globally, 100 million of which must come from domestic ticket sales. That rolls right off the tongue. Oh, wait, didn't we try this a couple years ago by adding with the whole Dark Knight fiasco? So they opened it up to additional movies, and then it really did nothing.
Right, but I don't think this is just a way to get
Barbie
viewers. It's so
because
people
some of
will watch, right?
Right. You know, we're going to talk about this Poor Things, which, as you mentioned, is a lot of Oscar bait going on. There's a lot of amazing things that the award. This is the type of movie that gets rewarded for certain things, but it's not necessarily a movie you can tell your friends to go watch.
Because how many times have I heard like, oh, I'm not going to watch these this year. I've not seen any of the movies. You know,
right.
Who cares?
Right. So you throw something like this, which is obviously going to be a Barbenheimer all over again with Oppenheimer and Barbie, because they were the two outside of Taylor Swift's Eras tour. You know, they were the 2 blockbusters. So yeah,
hey, I'm going to be very upset because Golden Globes snubbed in terms of the film categories Godzilla -1. So I'm going to.
Oh, I hope at the end. I hope
Oscars do the same.
Oh, what if it's just a big giant Godzilla foot stomps right through the stage and squishes everybody? I'll show you.
Just like the 1998 teaser trailer of that abomination.
That's true. That is true. Size does matter. That was the entire campaign. I remember
the time. It was right when episode 1 was gearing up.
Okay.
And there was a lot of pre-production videos being posted daily on the Lucasfilm website, right? Little mini vignettes or whatever, behind the scenes stuff. So to get interest going, because it was the early days of the internet then as well.
You couldn't just type StarWars.com. Yeah, there was a lot of backslashing then. And
so when the Godzilla movie bombed, I think that they posted something, plot does matter. And then of course,
really?
Yep.
They took a shot.
And then once that movie came out, it's like, yeah, plot does matter.
Plot does matter. Yes. You're not all excited about the trade negotiations,
tariffs or what have you.
Yes, indeed. So there you go. Cinematic and box office achievement in motion pictures is a new category. The second category is best stand-up comedian on television, which recognizes TV-based stand-up comedy sets of at least 30 minutes in length. But because the problem is that when you say television, it's like you've got to add in like the digital streaming viewership, and I guess television still just channels. Just yeah, I don't know. If anyone's interested, we'll look at the back end and see who won. How's that?
Yeah, by the time
Since it already
by the
happened.
time this airs, we'll already have the Oscar nominations out. I think that comes in either a
Right
week
on
or
the
two
heels.
after the Golden Globes. Yeah.
Well, the Golden Globes usually do set the tone.
Yeah, and I'm shocked that they're still being held or broadcast.
Well, yeah, I was going to say, what was it? 2 years ago?
That there was the
It
big
was
controversy.
canceled?
About who gets nominated and why, and
Right.
so yeah, I'm shocked. Not only do they still have them, that it's being broadcast, but people show up to get these awards.
They like to applaud themselves. It's the industry.
Yeah.
Listen, if I was there, I'd want it to. give me all the accolades you can throw at me. This is not really a news item, but I did see this yesterday, and I literally spit out my beer. So we just talked last week about Jonathan Majors and the fact that Marvel has released him. And we were all, speculating on what they're going to do with this character. I'm watching TV yesterday, football, NFL, and they cut to an ad commercial for Good Morning America is running a special tell-all interview with Jonathan Majors. I'm like, Good Morning America is on ABC. ABC is owned by Disney. So Disney fires you and then asks you to come back and give us all the juicy gossip. So now tell us how you did it. I just thought it was bizarre. And he's showing up. Apparently he's doing this interview. He was all weepy, wiping his eyes.
Maybe it's part of his contract with Disney.
Maybe you need to come on the show and talk about this.
Yeah.
But I did have an idea after our last discussion. We got one Marvel movie coming out this year, Deadpool. And we've already talked about the fact that Deadpool is very it's going to be crazy, wonky. They're bringing in characters from the multiverse or whatever. So just have him show up. Have him show up at the Council of Kings, kill everybody, turn around, look at the screen and be like, there you go, problem solved. And just move on. I expect my check in the mail, Disney.
Or if not, have Jonathan Majors himself in there, have some kind of throwaway line that tries to tie things up, kind of like what they did at the end of the last Loki episode. Who knows? I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. So that's all the news I have. So unless you found anything else, yeah, okay, then let's get into this. So let's get into this. Yeah.
Woo! This is a thing.
I mentioned before, I don't like to know too much about a movie before going into it, but you couldn't escape all the scuttlebutt about because it's Emma Stone, America's sweetheart. So even before this movie came out, there is a lot of chatter about how explicit this movie is going to be in terms of sex scenes and what have you. So that's really all I knew about it. I didn't know what the plot was. And then I saw this headline about Bride of Frankenstein. I'm like, oh, so this is getting more interesting to me. Maybe this is like a horror movie going in that direction, a period film, obviously, if you even see any of the photos from this. And it's kind of like a mashup. It's taking bits and pieces from different genres. There are horror elements in the very beginning, but then they're kind of cast aside. Buying my tickets, if you're going on Regal or Fandango, it gives you the rating, right? And it tells you what this movie contains: explicit sexual content, explicit gore was one of the things that I saw as I was buying tickets.
Okay.
Adult themes, your normal stuff, all the good stuff, right? So
all the good stuff. All right, I'm in. Yeah.
So I'm like, explicit gore. Okay, yeah, maybe this is a horror movie.
I've seen worse on CSI.
I know. In the first 10 minutes, maybe she jams a scalpel into a corpse's eyeball, which is pretty cool in itself.
Gleefully as well. I knew none of this. I honestly walked in not knowing anything other than the fact that this was a weird looking art house Bride of Frankenstein.
Yeah, and it is to a certain extent, but it's not at the same time.
Correct. Yeah.
It's a means to an end that is the setup to get this character who is fresh and innocent.
Yeah, I mean, she is, because this, I can't even begin to describe this. And I've talked to a couple people about it, and it's been over almost a full week now. And I can't stop thinking about it because it is just unlike anything I've really seen in the theater. And you're like, what the hell? Is this a comedy? Is this like the tone is weird, but visually it is unbelievable. We've got black and white cut into color. We find out like the flashback scenes were in color, but like up front, everything was black and white. And we're introduced to Willem Dafoe's character, who I can't look away from. He is spectacular.
All these scenes, being introduced to Willem Dafoe, because the movie kind of slowly unfolds, right? So when his character of Dr. Godwin Baxter comes on screen, he is completely scarred, right? So you're thinking, if you didn't know any better, here's the Frankenstein monster.
He's
right?
the monster,
yeah,
right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Which, in to a certain extent, he is, because you do learn his backstory and that his dad, operated and did all kinds of weird crap to him. So, but he's fantastic to look at, and he's got the one side of his jaw is just like completely he looks like Jack Palance.
Yeah, he does.
On one side,
he does.
But this is based on a book which I knew nothing about. It's a 2009 book by Alistair Gray, and I don't really know this director either, but I guess he has kind of like this weird pedigree of artsy films.
The two big movies that I know of that he's directed before, and this is Yorgos Lanthimos, a Greek director. He directed The Lobster, with Colin Farrell, and which was an offbeat, kind of very quirky fantasy, kind of in the same realm, blurring reality like this one does. And also The Favorite, which was a period comedy, which also starred Emma Stone, and that got a lot of high marks. That also had Rachel Weisz and Olivia Colman. So that was a straightforward period comedy / drama. And that was very good. And that did get a lot of award notice. Those are the two movies that I'm most familiar with that he's directed before. So going into this one, he does have a relationship already with Emma Stone, judging from that last movie. So I've been reading a lot of stuff where she completely trusts him, and you would have to do some of the stuff that
is very obvious. She is putting it all out there. And I'm not just talking the nudity, but she is, I don't even want to use tour de force, but it like the first 45 minutes, I was absolutely mesmerized. Yes. I'm like, what am I watching here? Mm-hmm. And she plays this character. All I could relate is almost like Jodie Foster as Nell. But even then, I think that does Emma Stone, what she does here, a huge disservice. We basically find out that she killed herself, but she was pregnant, and he takes the baby's brain and puts it in her. So she is an infant.
You don't know this up front. He reveals.
No, this. she's just like, she can barely stand. She's like a marionette with 3 of her wires cut. In the way she carries herself, and she doesn't really like. She's mumbling dialogue. And she's just a mess that the housekeeper can't handle.
I think that she is successfully, if you go back and think about it, because when she is in this phase at the very beginning,
right,
you don't know what's happened to her.
Right.
So,
no, it is kind of spoon fed to you. These little, there's a lot of flashbacks, and the cinematography on this is just, again, it is unlike anything I've ever seen, because he's using fisheye lenses. And then
in the beginning, because you're saying that you're mesmerized over the first 45 minutes. And then I think that far and away was the highlight of this for me.
Yes, I agree.
The beginning, when she was really learning.
An infant. She was an infant.
Because I think this would reward another viewing, because now you're going to be watching her thinking she's acting like an infant.
Everything you look at, you mentioned that it's a period piece, but it's not, because when they get on the cruise ship, it looks like something right out of Fifth Element.
Well, when they go to Lipson, there's like skyline things going above and everything else.
It's like
historical science fiction. It's historical science fiction,
and it's gorgeous. Everything about it is gorgeous. Again, I bring up the camera, and sometimes he'll shoot with these fisheye lenses, and then other times it looks like you're peering through a peephole, where it's just a little round. It's like the screen is black, and you're just getting the action in a little circle, and don't even get me started on the composition. On the music is just,
the music is fantastic.
It is, and again, it's like someone took a violinist or a cellist and got them high and said, I want to hear the weirdest crap you can come up with. And that's it's like the strings are just straining.
So that coupled with the fisheye lenses, there's just a very bizarre quality to the first 45 minutes or so, because then it gets more conventionally filmed as it goes on.
And I think that's deliberate if you put it through the lens that she is this. It really is a coming of age. This character, we see her as an infant, and then as she kind of discovers herself and literally discovers herself at the friggin' kitchen table, which around this first masturbation scene. And yes, there's I'm telling you right now, there's some uneasy, queasy moments that you start looking around. You're like, am I what am I watching here?
I know.
And there's a lady 2 seats beyond me. I'm reclined. I got my cheddar popcorn. It's a Tuesday afternoon.
I know. And she's probably like, let me see your hands, sir.
Yeah,
please.
no, it is. Yeah, no, because it quickly devolves into, I don't want to call it pornographic, but it is pornographic. She's completely nude, running around. At one point, we're going to jump around. She ends up working at a brothel. And it's like, all right, is this girl empowerment? Because she's using it as a way to acquire knowledge, not just for the pleasure of, although she did seem very pleased by the furious jumping.
Yeah, I think that the character is driven by knowledge. I don't think she's maybe knowingly using her sexuality, just going with what she wants and what she feels. And I think that's the point. You have somebody that has no morals thrusted upon them by society, who questions everything.
They
goes
do
with their gut, goes with what they want.
To kind of toe the line there a couple times, especially when Mark Ruffalo's character. Society does not want this, and the one guy is like, yeah, society's ruined us all.
I'm bringing it in very early, but this you see the same thing in The Bride, is that these men that are controlling Bella in this case, and Baxter is kind of brought her back, or created her, however you want to put it, to be this complete innocent, and he sees her as an experiment, much in the same way that Frankenstein does in The Bride. Not so much Baxter, because he's kind of like he turns out to be a very fatherly figure to her.
Oh yeah, there's nothing salacious about why he unlike Sting's motivation.
But Mark Ruffalo's character, who is a cad through and through,
he is a cad.
In the beginning, he's very taken. Was he a lawyer? I'm not really sure what he was.
I think he brought him in to do some paperwork or something like that, and he immediately
But he's reading this contract. Godwin has set it up so one of his students is going to marry her. Max, because he's got Max assisting him with her in his home, and he sees Max is quite taken with her as he is, but in Godwin, as you said, not in any kind of sexual way. He sets a contract in place. So Max pretty much owns her. Once Ruffalo's character reads this, he's like, oh, I've got to take a look at who this woman is.
Right. Why are we
they're locking her up,
here?
Right?
Yeah.
So he does, and he's also taken with her, and so much so that he steals her away. The reason he's taken with her is because she's so liberated. So Sting's character also has a lot of lofty ideals about, I'm going to create the perfect woman. And you see, this is also why Ruffalo is so taken with Bella, because she's got no shame whatsoever. But as much as they think that they love this, they cannot help but try to control her. And this is
that's why she leaves with Ruffalo, because they're trying to she wants to go out. She wants to go. I want to get out of here. I want to see the world. And they're like, no, you can't.
So he is freeing her, but then he turns out even worse than they would have.
This whole interaction between the two of them is hysterical, because it almost becomes like a buddy comedy farce, because he's playing it so broad, and anything that he tries to do, she turns it on its head, and he's just going he can't control her. I did read Ruffalo was very hesitant about coming on board for this movie.
Well, he is over 20 years older than Emma Stone, and they've got some very explicit scenes.
Yes, they do.
Together.
But I think he was more worried about the tone. He says he played the character with one foot on a banana peel, the other in a grave. And I'm like, well, that's a fine dance right there. Because he does steal her away. And right. You want to show me this woman's journey of enlightenment and controlling the situation and becoming her own person. But once you get rid of Max and you get rid of Godwin, it really does. It becomes monotonous. The very last. You actually think it's wrapping up when she comes back, and you say, "All right, now she's going to marry Max. She got all of her cobwebs out of the belfry, or whatever you want to, whatever metaphor you want to use." And then the ex-husband that she did have a former life.
It turns into another movie. And
you're like, I thought we were done here. Like, what is right? Then you start looking around again.
I actually really thought that sequence was interesting. So I think maybe if they cut some scenes out of the Paris
45 minutes of this could have been cut. A lot of that brothel stuff is not necessary. You get the impression, you understand what she's doing. I don't need to see her getting railed by all these pompous, overweight, ugly men who think they're, just getting over on her.
But let's go back to the beginning, the suicide, which starts on the bridge. So, shades of It's a Wonderful Life. It starts with someone ending their life, and it's lush. There's so much blue in this film. Yeah, the color blue is like used a lot.
It's like vibrant.
So much so that it looks hyper real, unreal, which lends to this steampunk science fiction.
Even more so when they're cut into black and white and then they go back to the color.
Right. So you see that she didn't start life as Bella. So know that she is someone else. She had a life before she was taken by Willem Dafoe. Then you see her as this adult infant playing the piano with her feet through the fisheye lens. So again, this really weird horror film type imagery, which I loved. Sitting in a high chair, it looks like at one point. Eating, and there's like a very stern housekeeper, just like in The Bride.
She doesn't want any of this.
Although, Godwin, as despicable as he is in the beginning, is a bit more forgiving than Sting is in The Bride.
Yeah.
Sting doesn't crack a smile the entire time in that movie.
No, he plays himself way too seriously. But you know what it is? I think those collars were just pissing him off.
Yeah.
I'd be very upset with those collars. But meanwhile, again, even like the set design to this house that they live in is just this Victorian mansion to the nth degree. But you've got chicken pig hybrids.
So he didn't start his experiments with Bella.
Ducks. No, and it's just they're just there. So it's painting the backstory that Bella may be his latest and greatest, but this is not where he.
So this movie could have gone in an entirely different direction because she thinks all these things are normal. So also what she thinks is normal is plunging a scalpel into somebody's eyes.
Well, it's just funny because later on when she comes back and she's like, I was always happiest in this room. Like, this is what I want to do. And I'm like, you were just poking dead bodies. That's all you were doing. That made you happy? I guess that was the biggest thrill of her day.
Mm-hmm. And
finding the cucumber.
Pulling the cucumber and watching it spring back.
Oh yes.
So he's a teacher, right? So Godwin he's not just like a mad scientist who stays in this mansion all the time. He is also a surgical teacher, and he has like a gastric problem. So he blows these bubbles out of his gut every once in a while.
This is all like. It's just all like matter of fact. Like this is just and Max is kind of like the audience where you're brought in here, and Max is like, "What the hell is going on around here?"
So really, largely, it's all window dressing to just add to the bizarre surroundings of her life. As an adult infant. Yeah,
but you're right. Godwin tells the backstory that his dad at one point removed all of his gastric juices just to see if the body could live without it, and he's like, "Yeah, come to find out, we need it." But now when he eats, there's a machine hooked up to him, and in order to finish the meal, he burps out this giant bubble. It's just a really bizarre.
And he lies to Max initially, saying that this girl is an experiment who had a brain injury, and he's repaired it, and she's now forgotten everything. Again, very similar to what happens in The Bride, is Sting has to make up a story of where this girl came from.
Well, listen, you're right. I found her. I'm like, oh, look, someone threw away a perfectly good girl. Take her home.
So he takes Max in, like, I need somebody here all the time to keep notes on her progression.
Yeah. But he has ulterior motives. Like, for him to be like, oh, I see the way you look at her. You want to marry her. Like I think he, would probably be sitting right there at the side of the bed, taking notes himself if they
But I think
eventually,
at the same
consummated.
time, he is, you see her very tenderly cuddling up with him as he reads her a bedtime
Yes.
story. He is trying to control his daughter to the nth degree once he comes up with this contract. But I think as the movie goes on, like it's very telling when Ruffalo's character takes her away and Max is freaking out that she's gone.
Yeah.
And it's Godwin is like, just okay, just let her
Well,
go. She
yeah.
needs this.
We'll just make another one.
Yeah.
We'll make another
And
one.
you were right. Last week you said poor things. There's got to be more than one. And you're right. There is
I think
more
they're
than
all
one.
poor things. I think because I was trying to think about that it really applies to every one of these people because they're all damaged goods to a certain degree. Once he takes her away, I think this really kind of it gets bogged down. There's a couple there's a great dance sequence when they're on the boat and she's out on the dance floor and then he comes out to kind of like shut her down a little bit. But I'm like, Jenna Ortega, eat your heart out. I cannot say enough good things about what Emma Stone has done here.
Yeah. And I love, again, in the beginning, going back to these opening scenes, how she throws tantrums, like when she wants to leave the house outside now,
Yeah.
giving her best Frankenstein monster dialogue. Bella wants to see worlds.
When she loses that innocence, when she becomes, more well versed, and now you see her, communing with the upper crust lady on the ship with her companion, and they're reading books together. And of course, Duncan wants none of this. He's like, what are you reading? You can't be reading. You can't be learning.
I need to control you. Go back to the cabin.
Right.
For somebody with a baby's brain, she grows up mighty fast.
Does. And that's the one thing you don't get a sense of, like how long she's been gone, because she does evolve really quickly.
Well, nobody seems to age, so it can't be that long.
Yeah. But my favorite line is when they're at the dinner and she just abruptly gets up and she goes, I must go punch that baby. Like, we've all been there. We've all been in a restaurant. There's a baby, uncontrollable baby.
You know what I thought was very funny was the motorized carriage with a fake horse on.
Yes, well, that's what I'm saying, where it really just borders on like, and you just accept it for like, there's other horse and buggies running around, but he's got this motorized one with a fake horse head on the front of it.
Yeah.
He doesn't want to go out because he's made fun of. People stare at him because he's all mutilated.
Still, I think he doesn't really care so much about that. I don't think that he wants people to spoil Bella, because when they're having that picnic, as soon as he sees other people, he makes everybody run and get in the carriage again.
Yeah.
But as I was saying before, this movie could have gone into a completely different direction as a horror film, because not only does she delight in poking the dead corpse's eye with the scalpel, she also gleefully kills the frog. Dead, This could she could have been a serial killer.
No,
could have turned into Lizzie Borden.
No, that's not the way it went.
Nope.
Not at all. Yeah. It does go in directions I didn't really expect. And like you said, when she finally comes back home and you're like, all right, well, I had my fun. Now it's time to honor my contract with Max. And he's chill with it. He's like, all right, you're back. Don't tell me what you did while you're away.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's like the girlfriend who went on spring break.
But again, and you hate the character of Duncan almost immediately, because you see him getting ideas even before he lays eyes on Bella. Like I said before, he's reading this contract that like is ironclad and really imprisons Bella to a marriage with Max. So all her rights are taken away by this piece of paper. So Duncan is intrigued. Again, as I said before, who is this woman that is caused this man to write this contract up, and that she can't go anywhere?
He finds out what kind of woman she is.
He goes up and finds her, and then in one of the only non-explicit scenes, which is left to your imagination, you see his hand go off camera, and then in that one gesture, she's already been awakened, but she sees something in him like, oh, this is somebody that can help me with furthering these feelings that I'm having. So she is all in on leaving with him to go to Libsyn. Godwin, once he realizes she's gone, says it's like the parent needing to let go when the kid like moves away and goes to college and has to discover things on their own. Just let her go. She has to come back on her own if she does come back. And
she does refer to him as God.
Unless I missed it, you're not introduced to him by his name. So you don't know that this is just maybe short for his act, but it's heavy-handed, and
Yeah,
And he doesn't correct her either. So
no,
he's
correct. Well, he did create her, but at what end? So yeah, apparently she had a whole other life. She had a husband. Victoria, was that her name? Victoria?
Victoria, but again, you don't know this until the very, very end. So
No, like
she is
again,
just
you
Bella.
think
She's
this,
Bella to you.
you think
right?
this movie is wrapping up, and all of a sudden this guy comes in. He's like, "Stop the wedding! That's my wife." And she's like, "What? No, I'm not. I don't know you. I don't know who this Victoria is you're talking about." And apparently, she wasn't a nice person.
They apparently enjoyed other people's suffering, and I don't know why his servants haven't actually risen up and killed
Yeah,
him already.
once again,
but
poor things. They're all poor things.
yeah.
So she gets dragged back to this guy's estate. No one's happy to see her. Again, how long has she been gone? That's
But again, I'm harping on Mark Ruffalo's character just because I think that he represents somebody who thinks he's above society's norms, but is so steeped in them. And I think that this movie really bashes men in general.
there's a lot of
which I thought was a bit unfair, but
Well,
but this guy is really the lowest of the low.
Well,
because
you referred to him as a cat early on, and that is the exact description.
and as he's trying to get her out the door from Godwin's, he's like, "I do not care for polite society. It's effing boring."
Yeah.
But I'm like, he's steeped
Now,
more than anyone in polite
yeah.
society.
Yep. And there's that scene where he wins all that money, and she takes all the money and gives it away.
Yeah.
Because she was witness to some poor people.
But it is funny just to see his frustration with her.
It's a she's empowering herself and he is depowering. She is doing everything that she is doing is just willing this guy down to nothing but a sack of crap.
He's bragging at the beginning how he's been with hundreds or thousands of women. She just defeats him completely.
Yeah, without even trying.
Yeah.
He's just, it's like, well, the more you try to control me, the more it's going to come back and just bite you in the face. But so we come back home. She shoots the ex-husband, right? He pulls a revolver on her and he ends up getting shot in the foot. And she bashes his head, drags him home, and you see that Godwin is dying. And so you immediately think they're going to transfer Godwin's brain into this guy so that Godwin can live on in a new body and be just like her. No, that's not where it went at all.
They put a goat's brain in him.
They put a goat's brain in him.
And just keep him around just to torture him. I don't know why.
Well, I guess
think
that's
it's funny, right? Yeah.
Because the scene at the end is they're all hanging out in the little garden, and there he is, the big old scar on his head.
Yeah. But if anybody deserves it, I would have liked to have seen also Mark Ruffalo's character.
Yeah, no, he just
to that at the
what
end.
Is he? He ends up in an insane asylum. Where do we end up believing him?
Well, he's the one that brings the husband. To the wedding. Yeah.
Somehow he figures this all out. Who she was. Yeah. The ending stumbles, I feel.
Although I think that the ending, it recaptures some of the fire that we had in the beginning when she's stuck in Alfred's house, because I truly didn't know what was going to happen next at this point. Like, is he going to kill her? Because this movie has not held back yet. So I wouldn't be surprised if it has a terrible, unhappy ending.
That is true. It could,
because it goes back into horror movie territory here when she's with Alfred, especially once you see how much he loves cruelty. He makes the maid spill the soup, the boiling hot soup on herself, and just thinks it's hilarious.
Yeah, apparently they used to laugh at crap like that.
Yeah,
together.
He tells her, "I will shoot you in the head if you try to leave." And then he's plotting genital mutilation on her.
Right. Yes. Yeah. Because we find out that again, she's been empowered. We can't have that. No, it'll be fine. And then you'll have no more worries about that. Yeah, I don't think so. I think I'll pass. Thank you.
She's about to be chloroformed, but she turns the tables after she shoots him in the foot and then knocks him out with the chloroform. And then Max brings him back. And then we haven't even talked really about Felicity, who was Bella's replacement after she leaves with Duncan, who is not quite as successful as an experiment as Bella was, because I think she's taking much longer to develop. But you're thinking, is this also a similar situation?
Yeah, you're never told, right?
You're never told explicitly.
We'll just build another one. That's fine.
Yeah, they're like this really weird dysfunctional family at the end. So she has come back home. She's gone and She's seen the world, and she's come back home willingly, and she says at one point that Max is the type to marry. I want to go off still with Duncan, so very shrewdly, but matter of factly, like, yeah, I'll marry him. He's good for that. But he's not good for this.
Isn't that the way most of marriages work? Yeah. All right. He's fatherly material. This guy, I'm going to settle down with this guy.
Yep.
Once
I'm done. Once
my oats have been sowed.
So it would have been interesting, I think, and they never go here. She's just a creature of desires, right? So she follows her heart. She follows whatever she wants. She never falls in love. She never experiences that. So I think it would have been interesting to see if the tables were turned at one point, if she ever became jealous, but you never go there with her character. She's above that.
It's like she's unencumbered by that. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Which is probably the point, but so. Yeah,
no, better people than I can analyze this and break it down and tell me how much girl empowerment this is or is not.
So I'm shocked it got away with an R rating, right? Because usually something like as explicit as this would be unrated.
You're leaning right into next.
And as a matter of fact, they did have to cut one scene to get it released in England.
Oh, really?
The scene where they're in the brothel and the father brings his two kids to watch. That's
an odd scene. And the kids are taking notes.
Yeah, I didn't need to see that. I mean,
no, well, that's what I'm saying. I don't think we needed to see a lot of that. You don't need to show me all of these Johns where she's like acquiring power every time.
And like one is more physically revolting than the last.
Yes. Yeah. Victoria Old Men. Yuck. I feel bad for all those prostitutes.
And then I did think to myself, I can only imagine how bad this guy must smell. And then she says it like, what's that smell? Is that you?
Disgusting. But then she was like, all right, well, we're going to do this, but I'm going to ask you some questions first. She's learning from it.
And it's in the back of your mind, like, what kind of diseases is she picking up? And Max actually asks her, have you been checked out? I will do that. No, but I will do that.
Yeah.
I'm glad at least.
How about you do that right now? You know what? We're going to cut this picnic short. Go take care of that. Yeah. I did read the madam, the old lady. And we see her with multiple tattoos. Obviously, those were not real tattoos. She said it took weeks to get rid of those tattoos. And the makeup department was like, oh, yeah, they'll wash off in the shower. And she's like, no, they didn't. But again, this whole third act really, for me, kind of stumbles. The scenes with her and Duncan went on way too long. I didn't need to be witness to as much of the brothel scenes as possible in order for me to understand that she is using this as empowerment, and she's really growing, and she's kind of using this, she's wielding it like a scalpel. Like it's like reading an encyclopedia.
During these scenes, she's building her own experience, morals, who knows? But like you said, I think maybe one or two Johns might have done the job,
done the trick, and again, everything she's doing is just mesmerizing, and she's doing these scenes. This is not like Jennifer Beal with a body double for one little shadowy scene. They're simulating sex. And
so I can actually see why again, I'm going to bring the word shrewd into this, and this is in terms of the movie making, why you would want someone like Emma Stone, like in terms of why wouldn't you get somebody that's an unknown, right? To play this part.
The gravitas of.
Well, because Emma Stone, to a degree, not quite like I'm going to say America's Sweetheart here, but when I say that, I think of Meg Ryan. So
right, yeah.
But you do
Meg Ryan would never do this movie.
You do know Emma Stone largely these days from like rom-coms, right? She's done a lot of rom-coms and a lot of comedies.
She was Gwen Stacy. We had The Incredible Hulk and Green Goblin.
And she started, very young, right, in movies.
Yeah.
So she has an innocent air about her as an actress. So to see her in a part like this, doing the things that she's doing, is very shocking to an audience. And it was shocking to me. It was it was uncomfortable, actually.
And I think that's on purpose. I think you said last week that people were getting up and walking out of this.
Not in my theater.
Oh,
but
no, I know,
in
but
general,
just in general,
yeah.
people are like, yeah, because you don't know what you're in for. Like it really, the movie poster leaves a lot to be desired, and what the content of this movie is. Even the trailer, like you said, you watch the trailer and you're like, all right, so it's like a Bride of Frankenstein type of thing.
Yeah, and these sexual scenes are done so matter of factly, again, not to titillate, and so it's not like watching,
No, it's never
Cinemax After
done.
Dark or anything
Yeah.
like that. It's
But like that first scene at the table where she pleasures herself with fresh produce, and you're just like, what? That was very uncomfortable.
But you, as a viewer, are faced with this reality and forced to be uncomfortable, just like the men surrounding her. I think it's a means to an end to have her, specifically have her in a
Have
part
her,
like
yeah.
this. Yeah.
Well, like you said, she has a past relationship with this director. She definitely has a comfort level with this guy. This is not something you can just, all right, there's an unproven director and this is what he wants to do. And you're like, okay.
Yeah.
No, it is shot very matter of factly. It is not titillating, as you mentioned.
The explicitness of this, I think it deters from the big picture. And when I say this, I'm going to break it down to the most basic level, but I think in some scenes her nipples upstage her, because you can't help, even though it's not titillating in any way, you can't help but stare. This is Emma Stone naked.
Oh, yeah,
You're not looking at the acting she's doing. And it's not like a man thing, because my wife said the same thing. Like, I couldn't help but stare at her. I think that this is the type of movie that would elicit so many different responses from different people, depending on what your background is, even more so than the normal movie, because that could be the case with anything that you read or view. But I think this is more polarizing. Hence reports of people walking out.
Right. Yeah, because when you get to that scene, it's like, what are we doing here? Where are we going?
Yeah.
I will tell you, I'm going to laud this because everything about artistically is top notch. I mean, I'm talking about the wardrobe. I'm talking about the acting. I'm talking about the soundtrack, the set designs, the cinematography. Like everything about this is unlike, even the end credits are unlike anything I have ever seen.
I thought the end credits were beautiful.
Again, everything about this movie is so artistically done. It's beautiful. It is unlike anything I've ever seen. And
so going into that direction, you saw this on some a new technology kind of a deal, laser.
Yeah, it was like
what did they call
laser,
it? What did
I
they call
don't remember what it was. It was AMC. I actually had to travel to go and see this because, as I mentioned before, it was not playing at my local Regal. And I'm glad because stadium seating, you got the nice reclining chairs. Oh, what's that? I got cheddar cheese popcorn choice. Okay. But yeah, it was super crisp visually. And I will say the soundtrack was, I'm going to have to search it out because it was unlike anything I've ever heard. This whole movie. And it's hard. Like I said, there's a couple people I can talk to about a movie like this. And even I have to say, it's just something you need to see. It is something to behold.
It is. And everything works. I think the music, the visuals, it blends perfectly. The music blends perfectly. The visuals blend perfectly to the story that is trying to be told. And for that alone, I can't say enough good things about this movie. And she is fantastic.
Yeah, no, clothes on or off, it doesn't matter. You can't stop looking. You can't take your eyes off her. Just like Willem Dafoe. And that's why I said, when his character is gone, you miss his character a little bit.
And I was very glad that he played the type of character that he did. I'm like, because I don't want to see this guy again after the Northman. So
you were concerned
I was concerned. Yes.
Yeah, it's something. They did make mention that her hair was growing at an exponential rate or whatever. And by the end of the movie, her hair is almost down to her feet. I guess the extensions were almost 4 feet long. So they stuck with it and at least made sure that by the end of the movie, her hair was significantly longer than when she started.
Visually, facially, and costume design wise, she's very striking.
Yeah, the big giant poofy shoulders. This will hopefully get its accolades at the Oscars this year.
Yeah, and Emma Stone herself was a producer on this movie. So I was reading that she had a lot of say into some of these behind the scene things. So it's not just her performance that you're looking at that you can applaud her for. A lot of the decisions in the movie making, I think she had a
Okay.
part of. It's fascinating, and like you said, I couldn't stop thinking about it
Yeah.
afterwards. It's too bad that we don't have Christina on this episode because I think that she could bring a whole other viewpoint to it
Perspective.
as
Yeah.
we can. I think it makes you stop and think about society and morals that still exist to this day. But having said that, I think it is a little bit too explicit. I don't think it needs to be.
I don't think we're being prudish about it. I just think it didn't necessarily have to be quite that.
Yeah, I think the story could have been told just as well if you cut half of that, the explicit scenes out. Still, I think it's fantastic. I don't think I've seen her better in a role, and she's always good. I think this is a game changer for her, and I would be shocked if she did not win Best Actress for this.
I agree. Yeah. It did get a 8-minute standing ovation at the Venice Film Festival.
But I think that, those audiences feel like for anything, they have to give this standing ovation because everybody's there, right? All the filmmakers are there.
It did win Golden Lion Award. Listen, you could easily get up and walk out. Be like, what the hell did you people do? This could have gone the other way. This could easily, and there are people out there who I can honestly say I would never recommend this movie to.
Oh yeah, this is not a movie for everybody.
No,
definitely not.
No.
Critics are right down the middle with this. Some critics hate it. Some critics love it. Time magazine wrote that it is Lanthimos' finest movie so far. Strange, gorgeous looking picture that extends generosity both to its characters and to its audience. Female reviewer, by the way, Stephanie Zacharek of Time. Mick LaSalle of the San Francisco Chronicle called it a 141-minute mistake. Worst of all, it's dishonest. It purports to be a feminist document, but it defines a woman's autonomy as the ability to be exploited and not care.
It's kind of a nihilistic view.
So I don't want to break it down like, okay, I've got a favorable review by a female reviewer and a negative review by a male reviewer. I do see a negative review by a female reviewer. Manola Dargis of the New York Times felt the story became monotonal, flat, and dull over time, writing that the movie's design is rich, its ideas thin.
I kind of agree with that, but there's so much good grace up front that I have to overlook the fact
I think that I think the positive for me outweighs the negative.
Yeah.
This is very difficult with buckets. I think it's a worthy watch. I think it will make you think. Like you said, it's not for everyone. So if you tend to shirk away from explicit sexuality, then it's not for you. Again, I think everybody's going to come away with different thoughts because I think you and I are kind of on the same page. I would go probably 3.5 buckets out of 5.
I'm going to go 4.5.
4.5.
I am going to go 4.5 for the artistic merit of it all. This is almost, except for the fact that it really could have an hour cut out of it. They are putting it all out there. And now when you tell me, even more so, I'm more impressed when you tell me that her fingers were involved in pretty much every aspect of this at the production level. She didn't just show up and take her clothes off. This is a very, very thought out movie, whether you think it's empowering or not. There's so much, especially in that first 45 minutes to that first hour, to just soak yourself in it and just be like, it's world building that we haven't seen before. And like I said, the cinematography is top notch. The soundtrack, the score is top notch. The acting, everything about this artistically is just blown me away. And it's not a movie I would have sought out by any means.
Mostly I wanted to cover it just because it was an excuse to talk about our next feature. But yeah, it's very affecting. And like I said, this is unprecedented. But if they could go back and make another version of this movie and turn it into a horror movie, I think at a certain point it could go into a completely different direction. I would love to see that. I would love to see that movie.
Could someone get Zack Snyder on the phone? We need a Snyder cut. It'll be 8 hours.
Yeah, there's a Snyder cut that exists of every movie that's ever been made.
Oh, we're going to bring up Snyder in the next movie. Someone had some really nice teeth, and I said, I wonder if Jim's going to get mad.
But so let's leave the world of Poor Things.
Okay. All right. It's out there. Go. You might have to search for it. But if you were intrigued by what we had to say, definitely go check it out.
And I can tell you that I was furiously eating the popcorn in this movie because maybe it was just a nervous reaction from what I was seeing on screen. Like I had to do something.
I think my jaw was on the floor. I don't know if I could have actually chewed.
So with that segue, I want to go to the concession stand.
Okay.
And I was like, is there some kind of a treat that I could bring up that talks to female empowerment? Maybe a candy that has a female name to it? I'm like, nah, that's too lame.
Baby Ruth?
But then I thought, okay, let's just look at it on a very base level. This movie got a very salacious reputation even before it was released.
Okay.
So let's go in that direction. So I was going for hot and spicy, and I decided to focus on the hot tamale.
Hot tamale. We're apparently putting way too much thought into these concessions now.
Yes. Hot tamale. On the box, it is advertised as America's #1 cinnamon-flavored candy.
What's number 2?
I don't know what number. I'm sure that there's more than one, but this is far and away the best known. The only flavor I could find is fierce cinnamon, and I think that's the normal flavor. This is made, and we've never talked about this company before.
What?
Just Born is the name of the company that makes hot tamales.
Just Born?
Just Born. And their slogan is, a great candy isn't made, it's just born.
Huh. Okay. Well, that does tie in with
Sort of, yes, sort of, in a way.
I was just born yesterday.
Just Born also makes, famously, the Mike and Ike. So hot tamales are pretty much hot Mike and Ike's. They're the same size.
I was going to say, they're pretty much the same.
Same consistency. So it's like a long oblong kind of jelly bean kind of a thing.
Okay.
But I wanted to go into the history of Just Born because that's more interesting than the history of the hot tamale itself. Started by the Russian-Jewish immigrant Sam Born, the company. So this is a family name, the Born name, came to the U.S. in December of 1909. And he's a candy maker, right? And he settled in San Francisco in those early days and was awarded the key to the city of San Francisco for inventing a machine that automated the process of inserting sticks into lollipops.
We can thank him for that?
We can thank him for that. And this machine was called the Born Sucker machine.
Got me right there. Quick.
Talk about P.T. Barnum couldn't have done better.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Born every day. So up until this point, someone had to manually stick
just like in the ribbon candy, somebody had to manually stick their thumbs into the candy to get the ribbon shape. Yeah. Then they made an automated process for that too. So apparently, yeah, before that you had to stick by hand the stems into the lollipops. After getting the key to the city in San Francisco, he's like, I can't do much better than this. He moved to New York, to Brooklyn, and started his own candy shop. And that's when the Just Born name came into being. Their original logo featured a baby in a measuring scale.
Oh, I don't know about that.
So not only did the company eventually make the Mike and Ike, but they also were the inventor of the Jimmies, or sprinkles, for ice cream.
Jimmy's?
Yeah.
I've never heard that.
You've never heard sprinkles known as Jimmies?
No.
Chocolate sprinkles that you put on ice cream were invented by Sam Born. I want to call him Jason Born, but no.
Jason Born.
Yeah. It's spelled B-O-R-N, not B-O-U-R-N.
U-R-N-E.
Yeah.
No legacy going on here.
Eventually, he moved up from his candy shop to a manufacturing company in New York City. And then with his brothers-in-law, moved to Pennsylvania, Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, bought a big building to start their manufacturing. They also, famously, invented the peep.
Really?
Yes. So that brings us to the hot tamale itself. So the hot tamale was invented in 1950. Again, a cinnamon-flavored candy. They were invented by Bob Born after he reworked the formula of the Mike and Ike, which already existed. And the name derives from this, and this is what it says on Wikipedia. The name derives from the sometimes spicy flavor of tamales. Is it sometimes
Sometimes? Only every couple bites.
There's been different flavors of the hot tamales, believe it or not. In 2011, they released the 3-alarm hot tamale.
3-alarm?
Mixing orange, pink, and dark red. So there's 3 different flavors here going on. So orange is hot, pinkish is hotter, and dark red is hottest. I don't know how the current one holds up to any of those 3. But I can tell you by sampling these things in the past couple of days that it starts out very hot, but it's kind of like a piece of gum that loses its flavor pretty quickly. But I would say you've got about a minute or 2 of that warm cinnamon hotness going on. And then it kind of just fades to a sweet, chewy, like jelly bean kind of consistency. So, but it's kind of like a Big Red. You know, if you've ever had Big Red gum, it's like that. It's the same kind of hotness. So it's not overly hot, but it does give you enough of a spice to give you a little bit of a jolt. In 2014, they released Hot Tamale Tropical Heat that combines the original spicy flavor with lemon, mango, and pineapple.
Ooh.
And then Hot Tamales Ice was marketed in the late 2000s, which was spearmint. But that was discontinued. So at the moment, you only have the original flavors. So these other flavors have come and gone over the years. So there you have it, the hot tamale.
I like it. Just born.
Yeah, just born.
I'm glad they got rid of the baby and the measuring. That seems weird. I hope he didn't have a lollipop stick in them. Very cool. Mike and Ike's came first.
Yeah, Mike and Ike's came first.
Okay.
I didn't even know the hot tamale was made by the same makers of Mike and Ike's. And it's funny that we've never even come across Just Born in our concession discussions.
Very niche market there.
All right, so let's leave the concession stand and let's go back to the year of 1985.
Woo, 1985. The year I graduated high school.
With The Bride. Released in 1985, I should quantify. In August, it was released in the U.S. in 1985. It was filmed in 1984. So the Police, which is the very famous band that Sting was a part of, had just come off tour for their monster Synchronicity album,
big album.
Like maybe 5-6 months previous to starting filming. Sting was one of the biggest stars in the world at the time that this was being filmed. He hadn't yet embarked on a solo career. I don't know if it was widely known yet that the Police weren't going to continue.
Was that 86, Dream of the Blue Turtle?
85. This was actually came out when If You Love Somebody Set Them Free was on the radio. But yeah, so he was a huge star. And Jennifer Beals also, the last movie she had made was Flashdance.
Yeah, I got waiting for her to break out into, I actually wrote in my notes, she's a maniac.
She is a maniac.
Yeah.
But this is a reworking of The Bride of Frankenstein. So have you ever seen the original Bride of Frankenstein?
Way back in the day, probably in college. It's been a while since I've actually witnessed that. I'm more familiar with the young Frankenstein version.
Have you ever seen the original Bride of Frankenstein? It is such an off-the-wall, bizarre movie. And I saw a revival of it at our local Bardavon Theater here in Poughkeepsie, New York. And I was just blown away. This movie, The Bride, is more of a poor things, sexual politics kind of a film. So it doesn't go into the nutso world of the original Bride of Frankenstein so much, but it's more of a conventional what would happen in this case. It starts as a classic Frankenstein film would.
Yeah, beautifully.
Down in the lab, right?
Yeah.
It's a very bizarre lab. He's got all these body parts like in glass canisters everywhere. Just legs and a canister. There's just a head in another one.
Well, how do you keep your body parts? The head in the jar was like right out of Futurama.
And the Igor character here.
Was that the guy who played Scabbers?
It is.
It is him.
Yep. Timothy Spall. Just about any British actor you'll find eventually in a Harry Potter film. There's one here too. So Scabbers is playing the Igor character of Paulus, who unfortunately comes to a quick end at the beginning.
Yeah,
of
we
this
don't
film.
see him very. No. He doesn't stick around very long.
But Sting does do a credible job as, as your friend. He doesn't have the famous "It's alive" line, which I was very disappointed with even
No,
when I
yeah.
first saw this.
Yeah.
But it's just a great set piece. The lab is beautiful. It's, all the stone and Gothic. He lives in a castle on a mountain, just like you would expect Frankenstein to, and his lab is located in the tower in his home. The body of the bride, completely wrapped in bandages, is in this really intricate harness that
almost like a spider web cocoon.
Yes,
type of thing where
beautiful.
Yeah, no, it is. This opening sequence is spectacular.
And he's got this really intricate, like the game Mousetrap, where the sand comes out of the mouth of a statue to raise
yeah. More sand.
More sand. So he hits her with lightning, and then he can't bring her down for some reason. She gets hit by another jolt of lightning, so he thinks that they've lost her because she starts to come alive, and they bring her down. He reveals Jennifer Beals.
She is incredibly well rested.
She is,
and
yes.
very healthy looking, radiant almost.
It does look like she just stuck her finger in an electric socket once her hair is revealed, because I guess that's the most that they could.
That's as close as I got to the actual bride hair, yeah.
Right. And you're also introduced early on to Clancy Brown as the original monster.
I had no clue that Clancy Brown was in this.
Yeah.
This is a year before Highlander as Victor. And he's almost unrecognizable in the makeup.
I do think that he does a very good job of hiding himself behind Victor.
He's a very well put together character.
Because one of the most recognizable things about Clancy Brown is his voice. If you think of Kurgan or any other character that he plays,
Mr. Krabs.
Yeah, he's got that deep resonating voice, which is completely gone
here. Which you would think he would lean into playing this character, but right. So he immediately they're like, mine. You made her for me, and he's like, no, you know what? I'm gonna keep her.
Yeah,
like, you jerk! Like right off the bat, Sting is like a moron. He's like, well, I actually did a pretty good job. She looks nice. I'm gonna keep this one. Yeah, and he's pissed. He's like, you said it was mine.
Yeah.
Sorry.
He's like, well, not mine. I do not understand.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. Talk about empowerment. No, she has none of it. Nope. We're just gonna keep her.
The monster freaks out, very understandably so. Freaks out. Destroys the lab, it catches fire and blows up. So the monster escapes, but everybody else, as far as Sting is concerned, he's dead. And he doesn't really look too far into the matter either. He's like, oh, he's gone.
Right.
Good riddance, right?
But you did all this work building this guy. You dug up all the body parts. You did all your homework, and he's gone. All right, well, I got her
now I've got her, who's a much better prospect than he was.
But this is interesting because they clearly make it, a point that she's been sewn together, but you don't really see any Frankenstein-ish scars.
No, you don't. But later on in the, I think that maybe the body that he used was fully formed, because you only ever hear that he had to sew the hands of the corpse were unsalvageable. So he had to sew different hands on her. So maybe the body was fully formed already. Who knows?
Just give me stitches around her wrists.
Yeah, that would have been nice to see. I agree.
You're telling me that you put her together. Yeah, she's pretty put together, all right.
I always think it's a very nice touch when the second lightning blast comes down and it activates all the various body parts in the canisters as well.
Oh, yes.
And you see the headbutt the glass. And it's just bubbling there. That was the set designer. That head was the set designer. Yeah.
Well, it's clearly that he's just hiding underneath the counter. You can see his neck and everything. So, but it goes by pretty quick.
Yeah.
So it's a nice setup. Now the monster's on the loose. Didn't get his girlfriend.
Jennifer Beals, who is playing Ava here, and Sting names her after.
I mean, all I could think of was Wally.
Eva. He names her after Eve, the first woman.
Sure. Doesn't give the other monster a name.
No.
Doesn't give Clancy Brown a name.
No, well, he calls him an abortion at one point. So
that's not a name.
Also calls him you imbecile at the beginning. So
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's probably got an abnormal brain, I'm sure.
Monster wakes up in the woods the next day and meets Ronaldo.
Who is David Rappaport from Time Bandits.
Right. who, if you were to watch this movie in the 80s, you would recognize him straight away. Any science fiction fan worth his salt would know this is the guy from Time Bandits.
Yeah.
And he's rocking a little mullet afro here. Looks like Newman from Seinfeld, actually. This guy's, little fro.
Newman.
But he's being bullied by a bunch of kids, and he can't even defend himself because they're surrounding him. And what's great is I have the Shout Factory Blu-ray. So of course I looked at the director's commentary, and he did that purposefully. He wanted, like, even these little children were towering over Ronaldo. So he didn't want to see Ronaldo until the children dispersed. And then here he is in the middle of them.
There he is. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So when they look at each other, Ronaldo and the monster, they immediately have a simpatico.
Connect.
Yeah.
I thought this was like the origin story of Master Blaster. Because he picks him right up, puts him on his shoulder. And I'm like, here we go, man. This is a road comedy right here. This should not be called The Bride at all.
The movie is really focused.
Yeah.
I mean, they cut to Sting in The Bride every once in a while, right?
That's the boring parts.
Yeah.
I don't care. She is walking around naked. Like, I want to get back to these two.
And the director himself was like, I really sold that story short, meaning The Bride and Sting. He's like,
because he got so wrapped up in
he did. He's like, as an audience member watching this, you are drawn to the story of Victor and Ronaldo.
Yes,
and I guess as a director, I was as well. So I focused more on these scenes than I did on the
these
the
are
Bride
misfit
and
toys. This is Rudolph and Hermes. Yeah, no, this is they immediately go to a pub. And it's like, all right, so a monster and a midget walk into a bar. He's like, give my buddy a pail of ale. And they're just like mesmerized. This guy's just like banging down beer. And I'm like, all right. And then immediately passes out. But you can't help but immediately relate to these two.
And I've seen this movie so many times that the dialogue plays in my head before they even say it.
Yep.
Like, I will never forget, like, David Rappaport's delivery. Another pint and another pail.
From my pal. A pail for my pal.
Yep. No, but before we get there, the naked walk-on scene.
Yeah, the it's so obvious that it's not her.
And as a kid, I was probably 15 when this movie came out.
Yeah.
It never dawned on me that this was a body double. I was like, wow, Jennifer Beals. As a 15-year now, it's, as you say, it's completely obvious because as she walks on,
her face is in shadow.
Completely in shadow. And then it's like a very jarring cut. She's trying to be in the same position as the body double ended up in at Sting's feet. The director also says, like on his commentary, like he stops whatever story he was telling me. Oh, wait a second. There's a naked woman coming into frame here. I've got to talk about this.
Hold on.
He says that was actually his wife's best friend. So it was a bit awkward for him to be on set because he knew this woman, but she agreed to do it. But even she was nervous about doing it in front of the crew and what have you.
You're right there in front of Sting.
It wasn't a professional actress.
So how do you audition for that?
I don't know.
You said you can't just send headshots. You gotta send body shots.
I was assuming, once seeing it again for this viewing and realizing it was a body double because Jennifer Beals famously had the dancing body double in Flashdance. Like, did they just get the same woman? Is that the,
right?
Who
that
they
would have
used?
made perfect sense. Yeah.
But now in these few scenes that you do have of Sting and Ava, he's got very lofty ideals of making the perfect woman, not unlike Poor Things, like uninhibited by society's norms. And he's talking to his quote unquote friend, Claval. I'm like, you really don't seem to like each other that much. She will astonish you, Claval. He talks at him like with a sneer, always on his face. And he also abuses the maid, Mrs. Bowman, who is valiantly trying to teach Eva some manners, which doesn't always work.
It doesn't help. During
these transitions from one story to the other, they're trying to set up the fact that these two beings are connected. Like psychically connected.
There's a couple instances where I'm like, so they're psychically connected, which is interesting in concept, but it doesn't really carry through.
Yeah, they don't build upon it because
later they encounter each other. He clearly knows who she is, and she doesn't know who he is.
Right, because she's lost her memory of that first time she came alive. So it takes some doing and some legwork on her part to realize what she is. And that's when the creature opens up to Ronaldo. But
woman problems. Yeah,
yeah.
that's what it all comes down to. Always the women problems. I should have known it. Ronaldo's like, yeah, I figured that one out. But this is also where he gives him his name. He gives him a name.
Yeah, Victor. He will win, which is interesting because Victor was the original name of the Dr. Frankenstein.
Yeah.
In this movie, Frankenstein's name is Charles. So it's Victor's the name of the monster here. And I love how he calls him Naldo. He never calls him Ronaldo. Naldo.
Well, he still has that monster cadence.
Yes, he does. He never really loses that, which is great. Well, you don't want him to lose that.
No, because she becomes like a genius overnight.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, she's
much like Bella in Poor Things.
Well, but at least we saw Bella's evolution. This girl just wakes up the next morning and she's like spouting Shakespearean.
Yeah, well, you got to assume that these are all unseen, that she is being taught this by
she could barely walk and they throw her on a horse. It's like, all right, go ride that thing.
He's not like Godwin. I'm talking about Frankenstein here. He's not like Godwin in Poor Things. When he's talking to his D-bag friend, when they're on the horses, when they're playing polo or whatever they're playing, or they're jousting with pheasants or what have you. I suppose you will teach her love as well. Yeah, that will be the last thing I teach her, he says with a sneer.
But we will get there. Yeah. Sting never rode a horse before. He had to learn how to ride.
Yes, and he's riding it like damn well as well.
Yeah, he was doing pretty damn good.
Yeah.
No stunt double there.
Nope. Yeah. I will teach her the love of equals. Yeah, it's very lofty, but that's the last thing he wants is to be an equal to her.
Him and Ruffalo should get together.
Yeah. So they go to the bar and Ronaldo goes in first and they're all like, get out. We don't serve your kind. I'm like, oh, really? You see his kind a lot in this bar, do you?
Right.
But,
how many midgets have walked into this bar?
Until the monster comes in. Then they change their story. And then you get the pint in a pail, right? Yeah. Monster can't hold his drink that well.
He drank 2 pails. And he barely ate a chicken.
And Naldo was going to order him another one. That's like a third.
They got thrown out and chucked over the bridge.
Now, this is one of the funniest things I have ever heard. Obviously, it's 2 body doubles that they used, stunt people, that they dump over this bridge. It was a pretty high bridge, so the dwarf that they used as the double for David Rappaport was not a stunt person and not an actor. They just got somebody that was working at a grocery store in the UK, right? That kind of resembled.
Like, yeah, you pay me money, you can throw me.
So he couldn't swim, this guy.
What? Why would you agree to this?
So the stunt guy that was playing Clancy Brown in this scene said, "Don't worry, governor," he says to the director. "When we fall, I'll hit the water first. So he'll be completely shielded. He won't drown." Right. So when you actually watch the movie, the director's like, okay, watch this. It didn't quite work out the way that he planned. He goes down and the dwarf is below him the entire fall. And that dwarf hits the water with the monster on top of him completely. So if you watch this scene with that in mind, the director's laughing, looking at the scene.
Of course. Well, everyone survived. I'm assuming everyone survived.
Everyone survived, but he said that first the guy doubling Clancy Brown comes up out of the water first, and the dwarf doesn't come up. About 200 yards downstream, he pops out of the water explodes out of the water.
Like a barrel from Jaws. I'm down here.
That will always stay with me because whenever that scene comes up, I'm like, watch. Yeah.
I love it when you know stuff like that. That's funny. The other thing, when were they in Budapest and Victor leaves poor Ronaldo and he finds him at the puppet show.
Yes.
And there's a scene where he's laughing, he's enjoying it. All the kids are giggling. And there's a little boy who turns around and looks at Victor. And the look on his face when he turns back around, like, what did I just witness? It's probably the funniest in this whole movie. The kid's eyes just bug. And they probably didn't tell him they probably didn't show him the monster beforehand.
But he's not freaking out. He's still enjoying the puppet show.
No, but all of a sudden he's probably questioning all of his life choices up to that moment.
Yeah.
Like, what is next to me right here?
Then there's that quick scene where you see Eva spinning, and then Victor's like, "Oh, dizzy."
Yeah.
So these little things they throw in to make you think that they're connected, right?
What happens if one of them goes to the bathroom? What? Wait, oh, I wet my pants.
They make it to Budapest and they get
And they treat Budapest
separated.
like it's Disneyland.
Yeah.
It looks like it's like you're like, all right, we're in the Magic Kingdom now, baby. He's getting some apples on a stick. I wonder if Just Born put those sticks in that apple.
But just like any other kid at Disneyland, if you turn your back, that kid's going to start wandering away, and that's what Victor does. So, so Ronaldo loses
but of course,
Victor.
poor, Ronaldo, because he's so small, he just gets kicked around, and no one sees him, and they're stepping
He drops
on him.
his apples.
He drops his apples. He probably stole them, to be honest with you. Can I ask where this was filmed? Because I didn't look it up, and I didn't.
It was
see
filmed. All the exteriors were filmed in French villages.
Because there's this fantastic statue of like a mermaid. Yeah, all the castle and stuff has got to be real.
Yeah, the castle was real. It was a chateau. They built the tower next to it.
Just so they could blow it up. That had to have been a miniature.
But there is a funny story about that, is that they did build the tower, and then once the director, Frank Rodham, got on set, he realized 2 rows of trees that he had asked them to build the tower. So from a certain vantage point, the tower would be perfectly in the middle
in between,
of these 2
right.
trees. But once he saw that it wasn't, he flipped out. He actually made them move the tower 12 feet. So it would be between, they had to get like cranes and everything to move this building without destroying it.
I gave you one job. I gave you one job.
But yeah, so going back to this puppet show, I always loved this because it's very subtle. But if you listen to Victor as Ronaldo's dragging him away, Victor is telling Ronaldo the story. He goes, the one puppet stole from the other one, and then that puppet comes back and hits and hits and hits. And you know that this is what he's thinking that he's going to do to Frankenstein.
Yep, I'm going to keep hitting.
I'm going to hit him and hit him and hit him.
She mine.
And now we get to the circus. This is the heartbreaking part of their story here.
But again, this. Yeah, I actually wrote in my notes. I said, if I'll never forgive you if Victor is hurt. But now we go the opposite.
But yeah, we meet the circus manager, who is played by Alexei Sayle, who was one of the biggest comedians in England in the 80s. So he was very well known, this guy.
Yeah, I recognized him, but I didn't.
I don't. Have you ever watched? Have you ever watched The Young Ones on MTV when they used to show it?
I do know of it. It's been a very long time. Yeah.
He was in a couple of those episodes. He was in a couple of those, and also his right-hand man by the name of Bella, another concession to the old days of Universal Horror, played by Phil Daniels, who was famously in Frank Rodham's other cult movie Quadrophenia, which is also starring Sting. So, and also for all you Blur fans out there, Phil Daniels is the voice that you hear on the track Park Life. So he is the guest vocalist on Blur's song Park Life. But anyway, he's playing Bella right now, and they tried to dress Bella like he was a member of the Rolling Stones, and that's revealed in the commentary. So he is the knife-wielding evil assistant to the circus manager, and they're always looking to rob all of their employees blind.
Yeah, this guy's a jerk, and he's very judgy immediately. As soon as he sees Ronaldo, he's like, you're a big fat furry freak yourself, and yet you're judging these little dwarfs.
And Ronaldo comes out with a document that says that, some doctor signed that he is the shortest man in Europe. And suddenly this guy pulls out of his pocket 20 other documents. I'm like, what, you just keep these in your jacket pocket for just a moment?
Yeah, correct. Just for this moment. You think you're the shortest.
But once they see Victor, they're like, well, this guy can hammer in some tent pegs.
Yeah, well, that's
right?
just it, right? Well, Ronaldo's using him. He's like, go hit that thing over there. Go hit that tent pole. And he's like, all right, well, he can stay. He's like, no. This is a double deal right here.
Yeah. It's like, okay, we'll pay you one wage.
One wage between the two of them. And he's like, okay.
And meanwhile, we get, again, these scenes with the bride and Sting are like throwaway. You're wanting to get back to Victor's story because that's what you're invested in. But you go back to Sting and the bride, like she goes to a mausoleum and she's looking at the corpses. Like, oh, this is what we look like under our skin. So like there's something dawning on her there, but she doesn't quite know what it is yet.
Does he have like sliding automatic doors in his castle, like at the grocery store? Like that thing,
because he's got that secret chamber where he goes to smoke his opium or whatever it is.
And it's just like it's like Star Trek Enterprise doors.
And then meanwhile, back to the circus is where you want to be. Yeah. You see Ronaldo showing the manager his trick.
And it's so funny. The first time he climbs up the rope, you're like, there's no way he's climbing that rope.
Yeah.
They're hoisting him up as he goes.
But what is impressive about that is this is in the days pre-CGI. So these days you could just digitally erase whatever the harness is that's bringing up. They had to hide it, right? His whole trick is that he's on the trapeze and that he pretends to fall, but he's harnessed in. So he stops short before he hits the audience and swings. And he becomes a hit because Victor thinks he's really falling. And Victor tries the first time they do it in front of an audience. No. And so they think it's part of the act, like that Victor is some kind of big clown.
So all of a sudden, no, two of them are,
they're the hits of the circus. They're the hits of the circus. Yeah.
Which is stupid. Like, so you're making money off these two.
The scumbag circus manager, I don't like you, Ronaldo. Still, he's taking him to task when Ronaldo asks for more money. Like, you should be happy. Give him more money because more people are coming to see your show.
That's corporate America right there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Corporate circus.
Then meanwhile, you get the scene where they try to bring Eva to some kind of a countess's ball.
Oh, this was great. I laughed
when she screams at the cat.
She sees the cat. She screams. She goes, I thought it was a tiny lion. I guess that didn't come up in class. We never showed you what a cat was.
But this is also where we're introduced to Cary Elwes. He looks like a baby.
He's like 12 years old. Yeah.
Now, here's the fascinating bit about this, is that initially Sting was going to play his part. He wasn't supposed to be Frankenstein when they first conceived of this movie, that Sting was just going to have this walk-on role and that the actual Dr. Frankenstein was going to be played by a much older actor. But they thought, because Sting is like the most popular person in the world right now that, that let's put him in. Let's put him in as the lead actor and let's have this be his first big movie.
He holds his own.
What was his name? What was this officer's name? Yosef?
It was a very long, convoluted name, but his first name was Joseph.
Right from across the room, he's like, his eyebrows raise as soon as he sees Eva. Much like Duncan from the other film. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Sting could have just made a side business making these for people. Real dolls for the Victorian age.
Going back to Victor's story, this is the
damn you
sad scene.
Damn you for making me care about these two characters.
Where Bella cuts the rope just enough, cuts Ronaldo's harness just enough, so when he does the trick the next time, the rope snaps.
This is why you need OSHA safety features.
So Ronaldo does not stop falling. He goes right into the bleachers, and it's terrible when his little body, like Victor turns him around and he's mangled. The bleachers are, because he's broken through some of the seats in the bleachers. He's like in all this broken wood. Victor takes him away. And this is the one time this is really kind of doesn't sit well with me, because as Victor's having this really tender goodbye to Ronaldo, and Ronaldo gives him the Venice, because Ronaldo's already told him that his dream is to see Venice, where the streets are made of water. He gives Victor his charm, and you see Venice for me. And then all these circus hands that were incredibly cruel to them up to this point, like now suddenly they care about Victor.
Well, now his buddy's dead. Actually, they probably were just, this guy might lose his cool here. We better be nice to him.
Or, now I'm going to have to hammer in the freaking 10 pegs.
That's true. Now I'm going to have to go back to do it myself.
I think Ronaldo knows that it wasn't just an accident, right? He tells Victor that he has to leave, take the gold that we've made and leave tonight. And so that's what Victor does, but he overhears Bella and the circus manager talking. Like, I didn't tell you to cut the rope. It's like, you said you wanted him out of the wood. So they're arguing. Victor freaks out, knocks over their cart.
Yeah, the wagon.
Bella comes out and gets impaled on the lion's den.
It's just a flesh wound.
So I would have liked to have seen Victor take out some of those other circus hands, like the blonde guy especially. Like maybe just choke him until his head pops off or something to that effect. Because Victor could have done it. He was completely within his powers, right?
Yeah. He was a very docile monster.
Now we get to the scene you were talking about before where Eva finds him. So I'm like, it took them weeks to get to Budapest to the circus. And now the next morning he's back.
He's right back. Yeah.
He's back on the property. Yeah.
Yeah, but meanwhile, like they're still teasing the idea that they are psychically connected because it's clear that Victor is sad that his friend has died, and she picks up on that. But I feel like there's no payoff for that whole story arc.
No, there's not really. There's
Yeah.
not. But yeah, there's this weird exchange between them where Victor gives her the Venetian
Coin
necklace.
Yeah. Because I even wrote, I'm like, does he not recognize her? But he clearly does know who she is.
Yes. Yeah. She doesn't recognize him.
No, she does
because
not recognize him.
Then we get to the second like debutante ball or whatever. This is where Sting, and this is like shades of Labyrinth in here with this little snow globe scene.
Did he create the world's first snow globe?
I don't know, but everybody was very taken with it. Yeah,
they were like, whoa.
And then suddenly the glitter starts to fall from the ceiling, just like they're in the snow globe. And you hear them, everybody applauding. And one guy, if you listen, one guy's going, more.
All the glitter I have, dude. I don't know what to tell you.
So this is the closest that Sting has come to a smile throughout this whole film. He's just got like a sneer on his face.
Might have been a gas.
But then he realizes that Eva's not anywhere to be seen. So he's looking around, and she's getting busy with Carrie Elways in the back room here.
Who wouldn't? He's a dreamboat.
So he doesn't want her to be free at all, this guy.
No,
he's not making he's just making himself, the what he thinks is the perfect woman. But he ends up slapping, gives him the glove slap across the face, right? It's like, choose your weapon, sir. But then he ends up saying, if this matters to you, I had no feelings for her to begin with.
Oh, okay. That makes it better.
Yeah.
They're both. They're both.
The girl means nothing to me.
And meanwhile, she's like, you don't own me like a mayor. Oh, was it his buddy who was like, the trouble with women, Charles, is they're free to despise us. It's a risk I find unacceptable. I'm like, that's actually a great line for a moron.
In the meantime, we get a full-on Young Frankenstein scene where the monster is captured by the angry mob and put in jail. And there's that scene where the blind guy, that really weird looking blind guy,
out of nowhere,
and you think it's going to be like a Gene Hackman kind of situation where he takes them in, right? Because everybody knows the famous scene in Frankenstein and Young Frankenstein. But nope, he yells, I found him. And then they capture him and they chain him up. After Sting glove slaps Carrie Elways, now he decides that he is going to have Eva for himself. He is now going to teach her about love. So he locks the doors and he's getting ready to assault her. And this is when
that's not love.
Victor senses that she's in trouble, breaks his chains, busts down the door, and makes his way to Castle Frankenstein. And then here we get the climax. But yeah, Sting's got some really creepy line. I made you for a wedding. Your wedding night has come. And just chasing her through the house. So the monster shows up and has kind of a feeble and disappointing fight with Sting.
Yeah, man, it's like, I'm afraid of a little fire, are we, Scarecrow?
Yep, still afraid of fire. So this is how you can have the equalizer. But still, they don't make it interesting because all it is Sting chasing the monster with the fire until he really accidentally falls off of the top of the tower. So you don't even have that catharsis of the monster maybe picking him up by the throat and throwing him off the tower.
Right, yeah. Pick him up by his collar.
And again, the director is like, we didn't have a lot of time to film this fight scene. We didn't even rehearse it, so we had to make it up on the fly. And during the filming of the fight, Sting actually, when he swings the piece of broken banister that was on fire,
a lightsaber,
he hits the wall with it at one point. You don't see it in the film, but he hits the wall with it, and it bounced back and he hit himself in the head.
Oh, really? Oops.
They had to stop filming, and he had to go to the hospital to get stitches.
Oops.
The fight wasn't really all that it could be. The director is still disappointed by the fight at the end of the movie. So regardless, Frankenstein dies. He falls off the top of the tower to his death. And I guess it is kind of satisfying to see his bloodied face, blankly staring into camera at the end there.
There were some deleted entries in his journal. Today, I witnessed a dead salmon frozen in a waterfall. There's a blue whale beached by a springtide's ebb. There's a butterfly trapped in the spider's web. Very soulful.
He is the king of pain.
He was in pain when he fell.
Yeah.
That was my only police joke.
So the end of the movie, you see shots of Venice, over the credits.
I literally wrote they honeymooned in Venice after all.
So are they together or are they separate? Because you don't see them holding each other together on the You see Victor by himself.
Wait, they couldn't afford to film them
And then you see
together?
the bride by her. So did they like go
Oh.
their separate ways? Are they
And
together?
just happened to go to Venice together?
Maybe they
I don't
just
know. I
went
didn't
to
really
Venice.
pick up on that.
Yeah. It's like, I
Okay.
don't think of you that way. Let's just go, separate carriages to Venice.
Maybe
I don't
we'll go
know.
out for drinks one night.
In case you forgot about Ronaldo, don't they show him one more time, like at the end?
Oh yeah, it was like his face in the sunset.
So, all right. So this was the first time you've seen The Bride.
I feel like I probably have seen this, but it's been so long ago that it was all new to me. I did find it funny. They make a mention of Prometheus Unbound. I'm like, that's very meta that she was reading
Because
Prometheus Unbound by
they're
Shelley.
arguing who wrote it.
Right.
And he thinks it's Keats. And she's like, no, it's Shelley.
You should know. You plagiarized her.
So yeah, like I said, Sting was like top of the world at this point.
Yeah, sure.
He had just come off the Synchronicity tour with the Police. So the director, Frank Rodham, thought that he could not miss. I have Sting as my leading man. I've got Jennifer Beals as my leading woman who just came off Flashdance. This is going to make more money than any movie ever. And he was thinking this, like going into it.
Sure. Why wouldn't you?
The budget was $13 million. And he said, and this was kind of high for a movie like this.
Well, it took $12 million to move the castle 12
Yeah. But because he had Sting and Jennifer Beals, the studio thought they couldn't miss with this. They were giving him anything he wanted.
Oh, no. We all know how this ends up.
Yeah. So the movie cost $13 million. It made $3 million at the box office. Not a
85.
hit.
What was it up against? 85 was a big year, though, for some. It depended on
Well,
when it
Back to
came
the
out.
Future, right?
Well,
Was
yeah.
85.
I'm just wondering when this came out. If it was in
Late
fall.
summer, August,
Late
it came
summer.
out.
I did see that Victor's makeup, Clancy Brown developed an infection and they shut down filming for 10 days.
Yes, they justified it as a force majeure. It's like a natural event. So they didn't lose money while they were
So they just lied to the insurance company?
I don't know. Well, I don't know if they lied or not,
It's not
but
a
I think
natural event.
Yeah,
You're putting makeup on him.
they couldn't have foreseen that happening, I think is
Right.
what the justification was.
Yeah, Buddy Ebsen wants his check. Yeah, I also read Mariel Hemingway filmed a character and she's completely cut.
Yeah, I did read that as well. I wonder what she filmed.
Her character was called Elizabeth. That's all I saw.
As I said, all the exteriors were filmed in France. All the interiors were filmed in London on set. I never saw this in the theater.
Oh.
Again, this was completely an HBO viewing experience for me. I saw it many times because I was a huge Police fan. Who wasn't at that time? Again, this was off the Synchronicity album. I had all of their, I think they had 5 records altogether. I had all of them. I was a huge Sting fan. That was my favorite band by far at that time.
Yeah.
And so I would always look at this movie through rose-colored glasses. Sting could do no wrong at the time to me.
Sure,
So
look at that hair.
but even now, with some hindsight, I still really like this movie. And again, I think it's more, like you said, it's less about the bride. And I think justifiably so, they focus more on Victor and Ronaldo, because that's the heart and soul of this story and this movie. And that's what makes this movie is the monster sections.
Agreed.
And it's nice to see David Rappaport in such a big role, after Time.
Oh,
Bandits as
absolutely.
well.
Yeah, his character is integral. You could have easily called this Poor Things, because these two guys, again, getting kicked around by society. This could have been the Victor and Ronaldo's excellent adventure.
Yeah. And Clancy Brown, amazing.
No, and he's like I said, this was a year before Kurgan. Yeah, I enjoyed it. I was happy to watch it. It is almost like the Frankenstein bride sections are shoehorned in to the main action. And it looked nice. I watched it streaming, not the Criterion level Blu-ray you're watching, but
I imagine that they use the same print as what is
probably
what's based on that version that I'm watching on my Blu-ray. So it was nice to revisit this. So
it was a great pairing. It was a good pairing.
And it's one of these movies that is so tied to its time. It's a period piece, but it's got Sting in it, right? So
it looks like an 80s MTV video. The attire is very stylized. The collars, I don't think they ever wore collars quite that big. It just seems like an awful lot of starch going on there, but it looks good.
Jennifer Beals was nominated for a Razzie Award.
Oh, really?
Yeah. She didn't win. I don't see who won this year.
I don't think she did anything enough to really warrant a Razzie.
No, and Clancy Brown was like, I think she's great in this movie. Yeah.
Clancy Brown should have got more recognition for this. He's completely unsung.
Yeah. And, he was just really, in his interview, he said the one thing that he remembers the most is being exhausted because he had 5 hours in the morning.
5 hours to put the makeup on.
To the makeup, and then like a couple of hours to take it off at the end of the day. So
that was the same thing with Willem Dafoe on the other movie. It was like a 4-hour ordeal.
Yeah. So he's there earlier than anybody else, and he's there leaving after everybody else.
And most of that makeup's on your face. It's not like you can...
He said that, as the shoot went on, they kind of tried to film it chronologically because the makeup changes for him because he's like completely scarred because his wounds are fresh at the beginning of the movie. But then as you see the movie progress, those scars heal. And he says at one point, I almost get kind of handsome by the end of the movie.
Almost. There's a lot of things you can use to describe Clancy Brown. I don't think handsome is one of them. I do. I love him though. Love him to death.
Yeah. Yeah. You're in for a treat when you see his name in the credits on anything.
Yeah. No,
but I thought it was interesting, though, speaking of the credits, that they saved Sting for the last credit, the last acting credit.
Sting. Yeah.
No, we didn't forget him. And Sting.
Sting. You're sitting there going, wait a minute, I came to see this movie because of Sting. Where is his name?
All right. So I know this isn't a great movie, right? And I know it's kind of only 65, 70% of a movie being, right. Meaning the Victor Ronaldo parts are much better than the bride parts. So with that in mind, I still love it. It still brings me right back to those 80s days of, watching these things on HBO. I'm going to give it 3 3/4 buckets.
I'm going to go 3.5. So I'm just below you. Yeah, no, I enjoyed this. Yeah, it's if going in that there's less bride, more monster.
I think that would have been a selling point of the movie. As a matter of fact, is that I'm surprised it didn't get sold more as a Frankenstein monster story.
It is kind of an odd choice, but go check it out. It's out there.
All right.
And it was an apt pairing.
Yes. Yeah. I thought it was.
We could watch them together.
What else did we do?
Oh, I finally watched the movie that just won an Emmy for Outstanding Television Movie. Weird. The Alien.
Oh, what were your thoughts?
We loved it. I loved every freaking minute of it. The kids and I were laughing, and halfway through the movie, my wife goes, "You really date Madonna?" I'm like, no, none of this is real. It's a parody. What better way to make a biopic than to parody every other biopic? When he's a kid, you've seen this, correct?
No, I have not yet.
You have not watched this? You have Roku. You have access to Roku.
I know.
This thing has been available for almost a solid year. I actually bought the Blu-ray months ago, only to find out when it came to my house from Australia that it was region 2. It wouldn't play on my I had to resell it. So it just dropped, and I picked it up. I pre-ordered on Amazon, and it came like 3 weeks ago. And it's just been sitting there. And I finally sat down and watched it the other night. Very enjoyable.
Is it a comedy? Is it
They play it straight, but if you know what you're watching. So clearly Weird Al, as a kid, he's misunderstood by his dad, who's this, factory worker. And I don't get you. You're weird. And a traveling accordion salesman comes to the house, and the dad beats him up, and his mom secretly buys him the accordion. And so he's practicing. And then, later in his teen years, a bunch of friends get him to go to a party, and he gets there and they find out it's a polka party. My parents are not going to be happy with this. It's a polka party. And so it's all played. And of course, he cuts My Bologna, becomes the biggest act in the world. Weird Al himself plays a record exec, almost like what Mike Myers did in the Queen biopic. But he's like, no one's gonna care about parody songs. You need to make original songs. And so he's like, well, I'm gonna make original songs. So he writes Eat It, and then Michael Jackson parodies it. And so now he's all bent out of shape that he's forever going to be linked to Michael Jackson, who's parodying his song. And Daniel Radcliffe, who plays adult version of Weird Al, is super ripped. It's at one point, he ends up dating Madonna, and she's just using him because anybody who has a song parodied by Weird Al gets the Yankovic bump. And so she wants in on this. But she's kidnapped by Pablo Escobar, and so now he has to go and rescue her. It's off the wall. It is just, and he went back and he re-recorded a lot of the songs specifically for this movie. Obviously, it's Daniel Radcliffe on stage singing, but it's Weird Al's voice, and it's very obvious that it's not Radcliffe actually singing, but that's part of the charm. Right. It is something to behold.
Wow.
Yes, I was very, very
finally got to watch it.
And it just won an Emmy last night. He celebrated on his Twitter account by going to In-N-Out Burger in his tux with his Emmy and sat there eating an In-N-Out Burger.
So did he write the movie, produce it?
He wrote it. He wrote it and produced it. Eric Appel is the director who also helped write it. There's a scene where he goes to a party and Pee Wee Herman's there and just a litany of characters. Dr. Demento, played by Rainn Wilson, is throughout this movie as well as like his mentor. There's a lot of cameos. Obviously, like I said, Madonna is a major character, and I'm like, she had to have signed off on this because they don't really paint her in a
who
nice
plays
light.
her? Anybody of note?
I don't know who the girl was that played Madonna. So, but enjoyable. I was thrilled to find the girl.
Now, you purchased this at the same time you purchased A Disturbance in the Force. Have you watched this yet?
I did. Oh,
yes.
I immediately watched that. Yes. Yeah, that's actually a lot of fun.
Now, did they show clips from the show?
They show not only clips, they show a lot of behind the footage stuff, which I've never seen. They do a really deep dive, not only on where Lucasfilm and where Star Wars was at that point in time and why this thing was made, who was involved in it, and why they dropped off. Ralph McQuarrie did character sketches for a lot of the set designs. It was never meant to be what it turned out to be, this kind of 70s musical, variety show. There's footage from all the main characters either talking about it or refusing to talk about it. At one point, Carrie Fisher breaks out into her song that she sings in the special. Bruce Valanche, who is actually a writer on this special, talks extensively throughout this about what it was and what they were trying to do and really why it became what it became. Very fascinating. Wow. And as a kid who just loved the stupid thing, because, as Mike on the show used to talk about, that was all these Star Wars we had.
A Disturbance in the Force is a documentary about the making of the Star Wars holiday special.
Yes.
So I was concerned that it was just like a third party making this and they had no right to use any footage from it or what have you, but that's not the case.
Yeah, if you could find it, if you can get it from your library, if they have it.
I might even just pick this up myself. Now, what would be fascinating or fabulous is that if they actually had the thing as a bonus feature,
that
uncut,
is not on there. I know it's a missed opportunity, to be honest with you.
I mean, if you're showing it, if you got the rights to show scenes from it, why not?
Yeah, no, and they go into the extent of the fact that people now celebrate Life Day. That Life Day has now been mentioned in The Mandalorian. Even though this was like a standalone, they talk extensively about the introduction of Boba Fett.
Yep.
And the Nelvana cartoon that's part of it. And it's pretty well put together.
So it sounds like this is more of an enjoyable watch than the special itself.
Yes. Yeah. If you watch the special, if you force yourself to watch a special every year, no pun intended, this really does kind of lay out why it exists. So, and now it's entertaining. Yeah.
Wow. All right. So I finished. It just came out in paperback. Paul McCartney, the lyrics. So he goes through.
Yes. Okay.
He goes through not every single song that he's ever written, but all the major ones. and he'll write little like chapters on each of these songs about the background of how they came to be written or what the lyrics mean. And he kind of jumps from back and forth. And there's a lot of memories that he writes about. Like he goes off on rabbit holes, like much like we do on this show.
Yeah, I was going to say,
So
don't judge him for that.
This is probably the closest that you're going to get from him to an autobiography. So again, it's called Paul McCartney, The Lyrics. Some very fascinating stories that even as a Beatles fan, I was unaware of. For example, and this is just some of these stories, just like kind of not looking at Emma Stone the same way again after watching Poor Things. I won't be able to listen to some of these songs the same way again. So for example, the song Ticket to Ride is pretty straightforward, right? Lyrically, like, she's got a ticket to ride and she don't care. There's actually a place called Ryde in England, Ryde. And when the song was written, that's kind of what the meaning was, is that she was going to this place called Ryde, which is like a getaway. It's a beach in the Isle of Wight. So knowing that, listening to that, she's got a ticket, like she's got a ticket to New York or something.
Right. Yeah.
Along those lines, like something like that. And it's not only his songs that he talks about. There's a few John Lennon songs that he talks about as well, because he has memories of how they were written. So,
okay.
It's a nice new insight when you thought you knew everything about the Beatles already. The
Very
lyrics
nice.
by Paul McCartney.
It's like finding out there's like an alternative cut somewhere.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, I never heard this lick before. Cool.
So, okay.
Alright.
So next week, we probably could have done this last episode, but it took us
All right.
it took us this long
to come up with it. Yeah.
So there are a handful of films out there that were set in the year 2024. Now, I'm not talking about movies that are coming out in 2024. I'm talking about movies that were imagining 2024 as some far-flung future.
The far-flung future.
Exactly. And there's
The
more than
21st.
two. There's more than two of these, believe it or not, but we've only picked two to cover. So it's like a New Year's theme.
In other words, there's nothing new in the theater.
Exactly. So we really had to rack our brains to come up with content for this
I
week.
like this. Listen, sometimes we don't have to give it an excuse. This is our show. This is what we chose.
Yeah.
Hey, listen to it. You get that.
So the first movie will be A Boy and His Dog, which is an apocalyptic sci-fi, like Road Warrior without the cars, kind of a landscape. I want to say as little about this as possible. Jeff has not seen it because I want him to go in fresh. So
I've not seen this.
it does star a very young Don Johnson in the lead. So that is what
not
I
wearing
will
socks.
give. But A Boy and His Dog will be the first film, and the second film I'll let Jeff introduce.
Well, you threw this out here, and you said that you have never watched it.
No, I have
You
not.
have not seen this. Well, until we covered Highlander, you had never seen it.
No, well, I've seen it, but I've never.
You had friends who lauded it, and you were like, "Yeah, I'm not watching that."
Yeah.
So we are going to go with Highlander 2. So speaking of dogs,
Right. So, and
We
that
are
is also
going to-
set in 2024.
which is amazing. We are there. We are in the future. We've reached it. We've finally.
I'm actually really looking forward to Highlander 2 because I've heard that it is so bad that these are the kind of things that I live for to watch.
It is so bad. It is going to make you angry if you are a Highlander fan because it undoes everything that the first movie.
So
the goodwill.
Let's just recap, right? So
Yes.
the end of the first Highlander ends with Christopher Lambert and Kurgan facing off, and there can be only one.
There can be only one.
So Kurgan
loses
gets his head chopped
Yep.
off. So you assume that at the end of the first Highlander that now Lambert is the one.
Yes, but if you sit through the very end credits or right before the end, you hear him lament the fact that he is now human.
Oh, I forgot that.
Now, he is. So he doesn't have the Highlander powers where he's immortal anymore. He can now age and die.
Unless Kurgan was not the last one.
Well, there wouldn't be a sequel with him.
Right.
But we do get Michael Ironside.
And I hope we get Sean Connery again.
I don't think they could afford him in this one. Hold on. We do. Holy crap. All right. I'm not saying anymore. It has been a while since I've seen this. And I do believe I own it not only on VHS, but also on DVD. But we're going to watch the Renegade cut, which is on Freebie.
Okay. So
one of those.
Is this a director's cut? Is this a fancy term for a director's cut?
I have to look it up. I'm yes, because this is one of those movies where when it came out, this is like a whole Snyder thing. It's like it came out and the director's like, yeah, this is not the movie I wanted to make. So yes, there is a Renegade cut. And I want to say I may have never seen the Renegade cut.
Ooh.
Which may be better than the original. I don't know. I guess we'll have to find out.
Yeah, we'll find out.
Yeah. So come back next week.
So 2 weeks, actually.
2 weeks, sorry.
2 weeks. And then we'll have A Boy and His Dog paired with Highlander 2, The Quickening.
The Quickening. Yeah. You're going to quickly want to move on.
Thank you for listening to this episode.
Always. Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. And that's it. Enjoy your week. And
we'll catch you next time.
Sounds like a plan. All right.
Bye.
Bye.
Hey, everybody. If you like what you just heard, be sure to follow TMI Confessionals of the Nerd Kind on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, or whatever you listen to your favorite podcasts on. Be sure to hit that subscribe button and then share it with your fellow movie nerd friends. It means the world to us and helps our listenership grow.
You can also find us on all of the socials, Instagram and Twitter at TMI_podcast 2018. We're on Facebook and YouTube as well. Just look for the Popcorn Bucket.
You can help support this show by visiting our TeePublic page for some TMI branded goodies such as hoodies, t-shirts, mugs, and stickers. tpublic.com/TMI Confessionals, all one word.
A 5-star review would be incredibly nice as well.
Thanks again for listening. We truly appreciate you. Be sure to come back next week. We'll save some popcorn for you.
That's actually a great line for a moron.